made me stop and think and seriously grateful because don't experience a communist country, and I don't stop and think the freedom that we do have, and that coming from that type of experience, having new opportunities. So just the richness of hearing from your perspectives, I've learned so much, and also I hear, I like the way sometimes I think I talk too much, but I like the way you you acknowledged me and just very graciously moved on to the next question about Make America Great. It's like you wanted to give everybody an opportunity, and I noticed that, and I love that.
Thank you for bringing that up because nobody in the group overly talked, right? But I wanted to, I felt a little bit that, but I wanted to demonstrate that technique, that if you do find somebody they're going on and on and on, instead of saying, it's time for you to shut up. But you basically do it in a very subtle way. Hold on for a second. Something that you said made me think of this. How about, and then you sort of go from there. So you respectfully sort of acknowledge it, and then you sort of move on. But during the ground rules, if you tell people that I may interrupt you because I want to know the voices, then people will not get upset when you actually do that if you do it in a respectful way.
I want to say something about that.
Yes.
One of the very first times I participated in that was at a conference, a wonderful conference I would recommend to everyone. It's the National Conference on Race and Ethnicity in Higher Education. It's taking place in Portland. It's always right after Memorial Day, since like the last week of May. And the facilitator is someone that I've worked with who's been presented here. Her name is Veronica. And the research she presented, which has to do with the experience of white and African Americans in the United States. I can't remember the name of the authors, but basically she's contrasting white speak and color speak. And one of the concepts she talked about that I'm also a talker. I like to listen to, I like to talk. In these kinds of settings, to be very mindful that as white people we've moved through the world where we've often been given the privilege to speak or dominate speak, and to be very mindful of what she called stepping up, stepping down, coming into the conversation, coming out of the conversation. So I practice that there, and I try to practice it here. Sometimes I do like to talk, but sometimes being aware of that little bit of research and what she had to say, how she's multiracial, African American, how she's Asian, how she codes what she calls code switches, moving through different communities, how she's perceived as an African American woman who has a doctorate and who has always spoken in that way, and navigating the sort of odd expectations that she is either not black enough or too black, depending on her circumstance. She's gay, she's married to a clearly someone who she said does not have. So just sort of an interesting little piece for us.
What else did you notice about the process?
I'm not sure I may be saying something outside your question. Speaking about, understanding others, I've been studying math in school, but I have a great interest in history, art history, world history. So I didn't get to learn that when I was in China. So when I have time, I study some history. It's not very structured. It's here and there, documentary books and stuff. And when I learned the part about European history, and I thought about, wow, if I were a white person, how would I feel about my history? You know what I mean? I said it would be nice if we could act on, say, I can pretend I'm Robin, right? Then I would think about my own history and ancestry and all of that stuff. How would I feel, right? But if I'm a black person, in that glorious history of European, recent history, how would she feel? So if you can think of it in that perspective, I think we might have better understanding of other people's that's my kind of textbook, more like a textbook kind of imagination. It is not intimate.
And so that brings up something interesting because it would be what you perceive. Like if I were to perceive what it would be to be Chinese, then I have my biases already that I have, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. What I perceive to be Chinese, or what I perceive to be black, or what I perceive to be whatever. And then, are we right? Like, is that real? Or is that just what we're perceiving? And our perceptions wrong in a
Right.
lot of ways, and just generalizations, right? Because I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here. We generalize and we think things, and that's part of the problem, is that we don't see people as individuals for who they really are in a lot of ways, because we're generalizing.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I liked from the dialogue was the actual dialogue with people, everyone being able to voice their opinion in a respectful way. It was just a great session. Being able to hear everyone's viewpoint and to be able to share.
Absolutely. Can you imagine if we had 6 of these
Yeah.
with just us? What would happen at the end of 6 weeks? We would end up getting to know, it would be bonded, we would get to know each other on so many different levels and dimensions. I mean, this is really how you build community, is that you do that. And also, it's about what they call interaction. Integration is not the answer. Integration is we're all working together in the same space. Interaction, we're talking about these issues in a purposeful sort of way, right? So this is the difference between integration and interaction. The other thing that as a facilitator, if you didn't catch this, I did a lot of this, yeah, okay, I validated people. So you want to actually be a facilitator, you want to be doing that. Or thank you for sharing. And I really like your perspective, right? So you are actually working with the facilitator to make sure that everybody feels that I'm a safe person to actually have this dialogue. And there's some other techniques that you can actually use, for that. It turned out to be a really great dialogue in this short period of time, right? Again, in the actual dialogue, you're going to spend that one time. You're not going to be talking about improvisation. You're going to be talking about get together and talk about each other interpersonally, learn about your high school, share something, this, and then let's do an icebreaker. We have the name tag, so you get into the bond as individuals before you actually talk about intergroup issues. And the ground rules, you make sure that everybody feels that they have that. Any final comments before we take a break? Yes.
You know, if, for example, when one of the colleagues here said something, I wanted to ask a question about it. I wanted to go even a little bit deeper. How, if somebody wanted to comment on what somebody else said, how does that?
That's ideal. You don't want to have the facilitator, you want to have the facilitator being the traffic communication officer if you want to, right? But ideally, if you're sitting back and you throw out a question and you're talking to each other, you're all just talking to each other, you've done your job, and so you want to say that, something you said that I would like to follow up on, and you talk to that person, that's a dialogue. As a facilitator, if you are talking a lot as a facilitator, you're not doing a dialogue. It's okay to share. Like I was going to tell you that I went to segregated schools. I'm 62 years old, so you're right. Segregation is not very far, from us. But I didn't at this point in time because the dialogue was going really, really great. But it's okay to share. You just don't want to tell your story which lasts 10 minutes because now it's about you. It's not about folks, right? So, and I'll tell you. We'll talk about some other techniques as to how you can participate in the dialogue, but you got to make it seem like you're not. Okay.
I had a logistical question. So if we were, because this group's going to come together on a hopefully structure how we'd like to look it up in the college. If we were asking folks to come for, let's say, up to 6 sessions, 3 to 6 sessions, about, if we had done sort of like a full dialogue, about how long would the dialogue part in, hi, nice to see you again, you put your name tag on, you sit down. How long would a session typically last?
The session with students that we've always done under the Voices of Discovery model is 2 hours per session.
Okay.
But you can do, let's say it's a staff, say staff are not allowed to take time off from their work, they can only do it over lunch. Make sure you serve food so that they don't sacrifice that. And then you can only do it for an hour, and you can get a lot done in an hour.
Okay.
But ideally, 2 hours would be great. I mean, you can imagine if we had done this for 2 hours. But
Also-
modify it.
To close a group discussion. So the goal is to hopefully carry on the discussion to the next meeting, right? But what about if someone in the meeting still, they have something inside that they just don't feel satisfied, like they feel like it's unfinished. Like there's still something inside they don't feel so good, and then they leave with that feeling, and they leave, how do you resolve that? So everyone can leave feeling satisfied, feeling fulfilled, and looking forward to coming back, and not leaving with that negative feeling?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. The daily evaluations are critical, because if somebody says, I feel really angry because I didn't get a chance to say this, then as a facilitator, that's your cue to follow up with the person. They don't put their name on it, but I think chances are you're gonna figure out and pick up as to who actually did that. But you're absolutely right, you don't wanna let anybody go home feeling really, really, really angry. So you wanna make sure you follow up with that. But you also wanna be respectful of the time. That we said we're only gonna meet for 2 hours, and then we're at the end of our time. But you can always invite, if anybody of you have anything you wanna say to me or talk to me about, I'll be here for the next few minutes and we can follow up. So you just wanna make sure you handle that with care. Yes,
Are the evaluations anonymous?
they are not anonymous, you don't put the name down.
Do you make it voluntary to put their name down?
What do you mean by you make it?
I mean, just in case someone doesn't mind to be reviewed, his or her name.
We usually try, you tell people that we don't need your name. But you want to open up that for discussion. If you not mind putting your name down, go ahead and put your name down, but we don't really need it. And see what happens. And sometimes they'll do it, but a lot of times they won't. So what you do is you co-facilitator, you take a look at those evaluations and you figure out a plan for next week. Because if everybody says, we want to talk about affirmative action, 7 of the participants said they want, then next week you better talk about affirmative action and come prepared to do that. So they'll give you guidance regarding that, and it's also tells you how the group is going. I really like the fact that everybody was honest. I really like the fact that everybody got a chance to talk. It gives you a temperature for how the dialogue is actually going.
I just want to say my students don't know what affirmative action is, like they never heard the term.
Yeah, okay. So you're
So
saying
just so you
I'm
know.
dating myself, right? Like, one time I was teaching a course and I gave an example of a disco. Pretend that you're at the disco with my student, I'm like, Dr. Trevino, what's a disco? Yeah. Well, I'm just giving that as an example, but, the students will actually tell you what they want to talk about. Black Lives Matter, or, the LGBT marriage laws, they'll let you know what they want to talk about. Okay, how about if we take a break?